Two Israeli girls were just leaving to go home for the day, and on an impulse, Henry asked them to stay a bit and give the soldiers a tour of the building. They were the last ones to close up that night, and something in a shared glance inspired Henry and one of the young women, Rachel, to correspond throughout the next 4 years of his military service. In his words, it was love at first sight. Spurred by that meeting, each took a giant leap of faith, feeling that the potential they saw in one another in that moment was real, and that leap led to a commitment to a shared new adventure together that has now endured very nearly 70 years, I believe. Those of you who know the Wheelers, beloved members of Or Shalom, know that these two people have developed a life of exemplary partnership together, beginning with their chance meeting in Israel, developing a burgeoning long-distance romance over the entirety of the Second World War, raising children who count both Israel and the United States as homes, and traversing the world with compassion and with their unique strengths. Their story, which I felt so lucky to hear a part of sitting in their kitchen table earlier this month, is exemplary of the kind of partnership and devotion we read this week in Parsha Chaye Sarah. We read in this Parsha the very first testimony of true love between couples witnessed in Torah. There are a number of humbling moments of couples' devotion in the text, including the opening scene for which the Parsha is named, Chaye Sarah, in which Abraham purchases a special plot of land, the cave of the Machpelah, to properly memorialize his wife, who died at the ripe age of 127, the first such ceremony to be seen in Torah. But after Sarah is buried, the Parsha turns to focus on his son Isaac and his meeting of his future wife Rebekah. And in this meeting, we get the line of Torah that I want to focus on today. For a little where we are in the story, Isaac has been journeying parentless in the Negev since fleeing his painful near sacrifice at the hands of his father in the Akedah. And he's on a quest of unknown outcome. And I thought it interesting to note that Henry, too, was orphaned when he came to do basic training in Israel's desert. Rebekah has just agreed to leave her family and homeland for a new place and a man she has not yet met. Perhaps Rachel could relate, having enlisted in the Scouts and committed to national service, living independently in Jerusalem. Their encounter is one that deserves a movie scene. Isaac, out on an evening stroll, chances to look up, specifically to lift his eyes and see camels in the distance. At just that moment, Rebekah too looks up and immediately inquires the accompanying servant, "Who is this man?" The rest of the scene is sweeping and brief. Taking a veil, the Torah says, she covers herself, and Isaac brought her to the tent of his mother Sarah. He took Rebekah, she became his wife, and he loved her. The Hebrew I want to focus on in this whirlwind love story is in the meeting of the eyes, specifically the lifting of the eyes. Yisa enai Yitzhak, Isaac lifted his eyes. V'tisa enecha Rebekah, Rebekah lifted her eyes. It is remarkable, note commentators, that the Torah describes the actions of Rebekah and Isaac using the form of the Hebrew root nun sin aleph, which means to lift up. On the verge of their very first meeting, both Rebekah and Isaac lift up their eyes and see each other. What could that mean, to lift up your eyes? The Midrash on this verse notes that for Rebekah and Isaac, there are at least three possibilities. First, by lifting up their eyes, they are able to see towards heaven, skyward. They can see the divine in each other. Next, in looking up, Rebekah and Isaac can see the potential beyond the surface. They can look beyond their beginnings and see the light within. And finally, in lifting up their eyes, they can see the future. Rebekah and Isaac can imagine the blessings that will be a part of their life together. Each can see beyond the present to the promise of what lies ahead. There are a number of ways in which the lifting of the eyes connotes a seeing beyond the present to a greater potential. Abraham, in our last parsha, Lech Lecha, journeyed and lifted his eyes and saw, as he heard cues from God, to climb a mountain and nearly sacrifice his son. That's a literal spiritual journey of ascension, a mountain peak that is being climbed here. But the lifting of the eyes, the raising up of the eyes between Isaac and Rebekah is more about the potential for intimacy and shared spiritual journey that can take place between human beings. Not always necessarily of the romantic nature, but of a nature that sees potential for partnership. This unique verbal cue of intimacy brings to my mind the idea put forth by Martin Buber, whose theory of I-thou relationships says that human beings in an I-thou relationship do not perceive each other as consisting of specific isolated qualities, but engage in a dialogue involving each other's whole being, including nonverbal communication that implies unity. In Torah, we glimpse these moments with subtle cues, in this parsha particularly, with Isaac and Rebekah's lifting up of their eyes. They both will each other out of an isolated world to one of shared reality, and in doing so, discover a partnership that gives each of them an incredible new strength. Partnership, including new friends, new co-workers, activity partners, Torah chavruta, starts by taking the time to notice the person willing to jump into that partnership with you. I imagine you've all had moments like that, perhaps in your life, of noticing the potential in someone new, or perhaps someone you've known for a while and are seeing for the first time in a new light. You feel that you not only see them, but you look up and meet their eyes and see beyond the surface to what could be. And I encourage you to think if there have been moments in your life where the seeing you do in the presence of another human being has been a lifting of the eyes moment, a moment of shared intimacy that sparks something new. It's not every day that we have these moments that spark life-changing partnership, but perhaps the chances of such are more possible when we remember to lift our eyes from the straight and narrow road ahead that we're so focused on, and meet a gaze of a stranger or a friend in our path. In lifting up their eyes, Isaac and Rebekah, Henry and Rachel, were able to see something that had eluded them and find love. We find love, friendship, and partnership when we see the future in each other, when we lift up our eyes to see, when we are able to see beyond the moment, beyond the initial spark of attraction, to what lies ahead and the partnership that is possible. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.